Hello, everyone. I'm Cal Gould, and we're back here for another round of interviews on the history of ball hockey. This one focuses, of course, on the city of Edmonton, and this particular individual has been involved for quite a few years, going back at least into the mid 80s. So let me find out who we are speaking with. What is your name and where are you from?
My name is James Wilson, and I am living in Edmonton, Alberta. That's where I was when I got involved with ball hockey way back when.
Well, let me ask you first off, what are some of your early memories of playing unorganized ball or street hockey?
One of my oldest memories is playing in the lanes in our Crescent in Inglewood, Edmonton. So kind of in the, I guess, west end of Edmonton to some degree. And we would congregate after hockey practice, after we were on the ice, but we would get into the to the lanes because the streets were a little too busy where we were, set up our goals with, somebody's boots or a pile of snow as the posts, and we would just get out there and have a blast. And then that would transfer into the summer, and we would start to play on the streets where they were a little bit less busy or in parking lots and set up and have times there. So people would ride their bikes and bring their masks and if you're playing net or your gloves and sticks, and we would just get out there and play to our heart's content. I was always, anybody who showed up was always welcome to play, and we would just mix up the teams and just have fun.
Did you play any other organized sports before you became involved in ball hockey?
Yes, I had a very active youth playing a variety of sports. Played ice hockey, of course, played baseball, played soccer, transitioned as I grew to play basketball and volleyball in high school and the like. So basically, if there was a sport with a ball in it other than football, I played it. So
how did you become involved in the sport of ball hockey? But what I mean by that is, did you join with some friends? Did you get invited? Was it a newspaper ad you responded to? How exactly?
Well, it was actually a summer job that I had one year. I was working with the STEP program, the Summer Temporary Employment Program, and had a job with a utilities division in the government of Alberta. And one of my colleagues there, about the same age as me, involved in computers, was playing on a organized ball hockey team at that time. And I had a couple of friends I knew that were playing, but I didn't really know a lot about the sport at that point. And John Waters was the gentleman's name. He got me involved at that stage and invited me to come out to a practice once, which I did. And then the next summer rolled around, and they were organizing their team, or the next season. He invited me to join the team from there. So basically, I got involved by a lucky happenstance meeting with a coworker for a summer job. And I knew the first time that I practiced and the first time that I played that this was a great sport, and I couldn't wait to keep playing more.
And how old were you when you had your first season? And were the players on the team approximately the same age as you?
I was either 21, 22, around that age when I first started. So it was a summer job while I was in university that got me going with this. And the team that I joined was mostly older folks at that time, and older to me at 21. They were 26, 27. So we had a variety of individuals, most of them working full time at that time. I think there was myself and two other students, and we kind of got away with an underage goalie for a year that somebody had a younger brother, a younger friend who I think was 16 or 17, but he was able to play net for us that season. And as anyone knows, you need a goalie and someone with equipment sometimes. So we're happy to have him engaged at that stage.
What was the name of that first team, and what league were you involved with?
It was the Edmonton Brewers, and we played in the Edmonton Ball Hockey Association. Our logo was basically quite similar to the Oilers, except instead of Oilers in the middle, it said Brewers, and it still had that same drop design with the letters, and we had the same colors that they had. And in fact, that's the team that I stayed with throughout my ball hockey. I never played for another team except in the winter league that we would get involved in once in a while.
Well, that more or less answered my next question, which was, are you involved in any other teams? But let's go on to the next question. In comparison to other organized sports that you played, what was your impression of the ball hockey organization that you were involved with?
It's an interesting question because the other sports that I played, I was generally speaking younger at that point. So I was in high school or a younger age playing organized sports. And you really saw it from the eyes of the player at that time. And, you showed up where your parents told you the schedule was, or they helped you get to the game, or in high school, it was a coach that let you know what was going on. So this was my first foray into adult recreational sports. And, we didn't have a coach on our team. We had someone who was a manager, which was really more effectively a coordinator to make sure we collected our fees and paid our dues and knew where to be at certain times for our games. So my first brush at it was really eye-opening and saying, okay, how does this come together to happen? And it's clearly because there's a lot of like-minded volunteers in most cases with the same sort of passion, the same sort of commitment, who want to do this activity. And so a lot of players, but a few really concerned and committed folks to get engaged and make it happen. And that's what I started to learn about in that first couple of seasons of playing.
Now, were you involved in the sport other than as a player, like as a ref, coach, manager, executive, any other capacity that you were involved with the sport?
As time progressed, my roles changed. So Cal, I'll kind of walk you through the evolution of it, and you can tell me where to stop. So don't be shy about that. I started as a player, and in my first year, I was kind of a quiet player, figuring out my role in a room with a bunch of folks who were older than me. And in my second year, I started to get a stronger voice and realize where I was in this group, and could bring some leadership and direction to the team. We started to climb the rises of the divisions at that point. We started to get better and play with a little bit of structure, and our team started to evolve. So I then became somewhat our team. They called him team manager, team coach at the time, but it really wasn't the coaching on the on ice, how to play. It was more organizing how many guys did we need for a game, getting a team going. So I moved into that role on our team, and then started to build relationships with the league executive, because that's who you would interact with as the league manager. You would find who you needed to play to, or who to meet with to pay your fees, to register your players, collect your schedules, and make things happen in that fashion. So as I developed those relationships with the executive and realized, there were a few of them doing a lot of work, I put up my hand and volunteered to undertake certain roles or help with certain roles. And Mark Lafergie, who was the league president at that time, he and I forged a very nice relationship, good friendship, and eventually he sort of helped me develop the repertoire and the skills to be able to ultimately move into the role of league president after working with the group for a while. And so, kind of went from just a player on a team to league president over a relatively short period, and was able to recruit players from other teams or from other groups to really help make sure we delivered a great opportunity to folks. And that was always our goal in Edmonton Ball Hockey Association, was to make sure that we were truly focused on the players and they got the chance to play and have a great experience, from the best of the elite teams to our weakest teams in the lowest divisions. We wanted everybody to come away the next year and say, can't wait for the next season to start. Sign me up, let's play again.
As your capacity of a league, as a league representative, having to deal with other organizations such as the Alberta or the provincial organization, and potentially the Canadian Ball Hockey Association, how did you find it dealing with those organizations and other leagues? How was it going there?
In Edmonton, we had two leagues, and you could look at them as rival leagues, or you could look at them as, the leagues that were growing the sport and pushing each other to be better and stronger. And so that was the Edmonton Ball Hockey Association that I was with, and then Capital City Ball Hockey Association. And I would say we had a friendly but competitive relationship. We were each trying to be better than the other, but we all realized we were in this for the same outcome and the same good. And then we would engage in the Alberta Ball Hockey Association, typically with Calgary Ball Hockey Association, but there were some other smaller leagues around the province at that time, and work towards, providing that opportunity to get to ensure that we complied with Canadian rules, but also to help the teams grow and develop so that they could get to the Canadian championships for ball hockey. So, the Calgary League, Capital City, ourselves, we all work towards let's help find the best team each season to be able to send to the Canadian championships. So we had that collaboration at the same time. A lot of different people with different visions, so there was friction at times, but again, we all had the same passion about playing ball hockey. It was interesting because when we get to the Canadian ball hockey level, I didn't have a lot of engagement over my time there because the group didn't get together and meet too frequently. But I did have the opportunity to attend a few meetings, 3 or 4, I think, over our time, and it was interesting to see where each province was at with their development. So in the Atlantic Canada provinces, ball hockey was a very strong, passionate organization, really well organized. In Ontario, my God, they were good and deep, and a lot of players, a lot of folks who may or may not have played ice hockey who came into that league, and it was especially in the Toronto area, extremely competitive. And you could just see what those groups were dealing with, and in some cases bigger than us in terms of leagues, and in other cases smaller than us, but the same delivery. And over time, I got to see how BC grew and developed in that as well. So what always impressed me through all of those years was, at the core of it, we all wanted to play, and we tended to come together when it was just the elite teams competing for that Canadian championship and discussing that. But when we got into how to make the rules work for all divisions and how to ensure that everything worked for all divisions, you can see the discussion would step back and say, how do we make sure that we continue to get people involved and that they want to carry on? So that commitment or the passion was always foremost in everybody's mind as a volunteer.
Looking back to prior to 1987, there was basically only one level of play. At least there was only one level of play that was recognized. And 1987 introduced a second tier for men's ball hockey. After that, there are now multiple levels of ball hockey. It's no secret that Edmonton Ball Hockey Association prior to 1993 had excellent success at provincial levels and even in national level, whereas CCBHA never seemed to do quite as well as those elite teams from EBHA. Although the second level of play, the tier 2 level, we saw pretty an equal or some parity between the leagues. And so how did you feel about the growth of the sport when there was a second expansion, like a first expansion into tier 2 and then additional levels after that? How did you feel that helped with the sport?
I'm not sure I have a lot to offer on that question, because when I really started to get involved, tier 2 had already been created. So I wasn't there or really engaged in any of the development discussions or how we went from 1 tier to 2 tiers. That's kind of around the period that my engagement as more than a player started at that point. So I didn't know the pre condition very well, but I do know the situation that has emerged with 2 tiers and now subsequently more tiers. And I've seen other models and other sports go that route as well. And what I like about the ball hockey side is that there is a mechanism that requires teams to continue to try to aspire to the next level. Whereas in some other sports that I've seen in terms of ice hockey or slow pitch and some of the others, you slot in where you want to compete, and you see people try to aspire to win a C championship, then rather accelerate to the B level or to the A level. And certainly in ball hockey, it was all designed so that you press to the best level. I think your assessment really probably was an interesting time for us. Like, I happened to be there when the Tier 1 teams from EBHA were doing exceptionally well and competing very, very well at the national levels. And but in Tier 2, Capital City and EBHA were quite equal. It really would depend on what season and who was hot and who had a good goalie that tournament to see who was going to go further in provincials each season. So it was really good parity, and I think it's kind of strange, but Capital City was better at getting more teams into their Tier 1 level. We struggled in EBHA to get teams to compete with the Playboys and the Nordiques, our top two teams, and so they tended to be able to recruit a few extra new players and stay competitive every single year, whereas Capital City had, typically speaking, I think at least 5 teams up in their Tier 1, and so they were a little bit more balanced. We had a couple of powerhouses, so I think that speaks to it. Part of the reason for why EBHA tended to do a little bit better. Wasn't our goal. Didn't mind when it happened, but it certainly wasn't our goal to have that work in that fashion.
So for yourself, did you play in any provincial, regional, or national tournaments?
Yes, I did. I was twice I had involvement in towards that level. So one time I was picked up as a rotational or sub player for a provincials tournament from a Tier 2 team. So the Ukrainian Nationals, or the UK Nats in our division, they went forward one year, and I had played in the same tier with them in Tier 2 in Edmonton Ball Hockey, and they knew I was going to be down there anyway, and they were looking for players. So it was a matter of convenience and foreknowledge, and I knew all their guys, and they thought I would fit in. So I was able to play one year, and what a fun experience that was to play as a Tier 2 player. One other thing that we did a few years later in Edmonton Ball Hockey, because of the nature of Tier 2, we created a tournament to select our team to go in Tier 2, rather than just have the Tier 2 season champion go forward. I believe, if I recall the structure correctly, we took the top 3 Tier 2 teams, the next Tier 3 team, and a Tier 4 team, and created a 4-game round robin to see who would be the best team in that rounding out to go there. Kind of knew the Tier 3 and the Tier 4 team weren't going to make it, but gave them some extra games to play against some other teams. And I was on that Tier 3 team that played, and we got it handed to us pretty good by the Tier 2 teams. So it was, I think that was the only year that we did it. The Tier 2 teams would be happy just to compete amongst themselves.
Do you have any favorite memories of ball hockey, both personally and as a team? Any specific memory that pops to your mind?
There's a lot of them. It's interesting when you ask that question about memories, and your mind kind of kicks in and starts to race back to everything that took place. And as I sit here and ponder which one to talk about, I can tell you that almost all of those memories are tied to the relationships that you built with your friends, with your teammates, or when there was a couple times, and I hate that I've forgotten this gentleman's name, but there was a guy who had joined our league who was running a team and helped me a lot one year with organizing some Tier 2 events that we had going on. He was just such a super hard worker. He played for a couple of seasons, organized with me for a season, and then his job took him to another province, and we never stayed in touch. There was no texting quite as easy as it is today. But yeah, some of the fondest memories are going to provincials, having that opportunity to play. sitting there one day in Edmonton when we had a joint all-star games between Capital City and Edmonton Ball Hockey, our tier 1 against their tier 1, our tier 2 against their tier 2, so on and so forth, down to tier 4 or 5. We had just a slate of games, almost like hockey day in Canada. We had all-star game day in Edmonton one season, and it was so much fun to walk that through, sitting in the stands in the championships and watching your teams compete, and folks you connected with all year long as they've organize their teams, and you get to see them succeed, or in some cases sadly fail, but they're competing and having a great time doing that. All of those things were wonderful events.
Are you still involved in the sport of ball hockey?
No, I haven't been for a number of years, but I did come back in a sense a few years ago. So I'm proud father of a daughter and a son, and my son, when he was 4 or 5 years old, he came to play again or start playing in ball hockey. So he picked up a stick, and we played mini sticks downstairs. And as fate would have it, a friend of mine had his little one in a learn to play ball hockey program, and it was being played out of the soccer centers in Edmonton. And so I signed up Matthew one season, and he loved it. And then I connected with a really good friend of mine, Mitch De La Salle. I know you know him. His son and my son are the same age, and so we got together the next year and got the two of them and a whole whack of their little buddies to sign in. And so we herded cats or herded players for a few hours every Saturday as they the 5 and 6 year olds are all figuring out the game and how it works at that point. So Matt played for about 3 seasons. He might have played 4 before he decided he wanted to try baseball and other summer sports instead of ball hockey. But it was great going back when we went back into ball hockey at that point. I was kind of showing up at the rink the first time, and I saw some of the old names and some of the old people from way back still involved. So Steve Posovic, who was leading Capital City when I was leading Edmonton Ball Hockey Association, he was there. Jeff Romaine was there. Just wonderful to see old friends who continued on, stayed involved in the sport throughout all those years. Yeah, it was great to get back into it for a little while and see how it all came together.
You more or less covered my next question, which was, are there any other family members that played ball hockey? Did you have any brothers, cousins, or anybody else that played the sport?
I don't think there's no one that comes to mind as my brothers or cousin, my brother or any of my cousins that played. I had a lot of friends who played. I had friends who played on the Playboys, and then played on our team on the Brewers, and through ball hockey there was some folks on the Lone Stars, so the team that Mark Lafergie was on and Garrett Kroll, guys like Lane Podelicki were on that team, and friends of mine, Damon Hebert and Francis Batsula, good connections that I'd made over all of the years, but nobody in our family aside from me and Matthew who have played.
What do you feel has made the greatest impact on the growth of the sport?
I think the opportunity that comes from ball hockey, especially in Edmonton, which would be my most significant experience with it, is the way that the city government, the city, has been able to engage and participate with the leagues. And then ultimately, as the leagues grew and moved into the soccer centers, there's been a really great opportunity to use facilities to play this. And that, to me, was always like one of the limiting factors in the years that I was involved. There was only so much rink time, and you had a lot of interest in the sports. And so we had our rinks assigned to us for Edmonton Ball Hockey Association. We had Oliver and Tipton and a few others. Capital City had their rinks like Coronation assigned to them. And then there just wasn't anywhere else for folks to play. So with the advent of the soccer facilities and the opportunity to go year round, it was just a chance to expand and to grow the sport even more and even more. So when I left active involvement as a volunteer and as a player, those discussions were happening with the newly formed Ball Hockey Edmonton that had come from the merger of, or amalgamation, I guess is the better term, of EBHA and Capital City Ball Hockey. The new entity Ball Hockey Edmonton was able to carry on and drive that forward. And sorry, I'm just gonna jump in with one extra point on that. So, the access to facilities was huge for the growth, but without the, I've mentioned it a couple of times, without that commitment and the passion, and in some regards the vision of the people who were organizing it, it had to be the marriage of the two that brought it forward. It certainly wasn't one without the other. There are just tons of amazing volunteers over the years. I know the group that I was mostly involved with at that time, but then it expanded and it revitalized itself continuously over the years too. I don't know a lot of the individuals involved today, but I do see the odd name that's like, oh, I knew that guy, or I knew that guy's parent when they were involved. So it's great to see.
What advice would you give to someone that wants to play the sport of ball hockey?
The best advice, I'm going to take a couple of different perspectives on this. So number one is make sure you're in shape. Unlike, and not to say any other version of hockey is different, but there's no gliding in ball hockey. So you got to run the whole time. So it is a fantastic sport to stay in shape and to get a great workout in. And if that's your goal or your interest, that's, you've mapped it out really, really well. I think the best advice I can give to somebody is, really enjoy yourself out there, make those connections. Don't be the first one out of the locker room. Spend your time with your peers like any other sport. It's fun to play. It's also just as much fun to get there early, to connect with the team in the locker room, and to spend the time afterwards. It's the whole experience from start to finish. It's not just the time from the ball drops to the end of the game. When the ball drops, though, it's time to compete and have fun. And there's just so much opportunity with the game at all sorts of levels. Once you find your right level, you can really have a fantastic time playing and connecting with the people there.
Is there a person, if they were here right now, that you would want to thank for getting you involved in ball hockey?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the very first person that I would want to thank is John Waters. He was the one who had gotten me involved with the Brewers in that team and got me interested in the first little bit of playing ball hockey. And with that team, I mean, we had our warts probably like any other team, but you could see the energy and the commitment of the group. And then there was an individual on the team who was kind of our leader at that point. Kind of he and another person shared it, but Doug Lepak, who was involved and still plays. I said I follow him on Facebook, or at least still played up until a couple or 3 years ago, as far as I know. He had so much passion for the sport and just such a gentleman out there, and always wanted to get everybody involved and always wanted to get everybody moving. He was a great force to connect with. Mark Lafergie and Garrett Kroll, when I started to get involved and started to take a different role in terms of the leadership of the overall group, they were instrumental in guidance and mentoring for helping to succeed in that capacity. And then, just all my friends that I played with over the years, the two that jump, or three that jump right off the table are Damon Hebert and Francis Putsula, and then Mitch De La Salle. Being able to connect with those three guys, and still close with all of them to this day. And there's no time that we get together that we don't spend a little bit of time talking about our good old ball hockey days, and either playing together or playing against each other.
As you may or may not know, the sport of ball hockey has improved not just nationwide, but worldwide. There are now multiple levels of play. There's an international championship that's been held ever since 1996 in men's, women's, juniors, all sorts of levels of play, even the masters in men and women. And masters is defined as age of the players, not the caliber play. Right. So knowing that there's a international body and international championships, what do you see or hope to see for the future of ball hockey?
I think it's really just the continued growth of the sport probably more so at the grassroots level. That's what I'm more excited or more thrilled or interested to see happening than the continued expansion at the international level. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the expansion at the international level or the development of those opportunities is wonderful, and that just increases the profile of the sport, which in turn brings more players in at that grassroots level, and they get to experience the joy of ball hockey. So I love the international development. I love all of the additional tiers and all the opportunities to compete at different levels for folks. But where I like to see those leagues work, and I'll go back to something I mentioned earlier, when they can have those programs and have the little mini mites and the mites coming in and starting at that age and having that love of the sport start to develop, then it can transcend for so many years. My daughter, a couple years older than my son, she's 20 right now. She played fairly high level women's hockey growing up. She got to basically midget AA, or I guess it would be U18 AA is the term that they use now for that hockey. Some of her peers have now made the transition. Now that they've finished up with ice hockey, they're now playing ball hockey in the summer, or playing ball hockey on a year-round team, and have competed at that national level, and got to see that opportunity to develop for the girls as well, which is fantastic too. So it's just, it's so fun to see where it's gone and recognize maybe I was a little part of it at that point and helped move a few things forward so that others could take that ball and run with it further and further as the years went by.
Thank you very much. That's it for my questions, but is there anything else that you would like to share that I may not have been part of my interview here?
Cal, one of the things that I had wanted to make sure that I got across, and you allowed me to do that today, was to recognize folks like Mark Lafergie and Garrett Kroll and what they brought to the table in terms of moving ball hockey forward. And then definitely Steve Posovic and Jeff Romaine from Capital City, who, along with us, built up Ball Hockey Edmonton when it came to be that we amalgamated the leagues. I wanted to make sure we talked about those individuals, and I'm happy that we did, and the roles they played. I had the chance to connect with some really amazing individuals over the years. Doug McCarthy, just an absolute amazing player. Rick and Scotty McGee from the Nordiques were, again, fantastic players, good organizers of their team. These are just salt of the earth people that I number around my friends and acquaintances for all these years, and I feel better having known them all. So, not just those individuals, plus all of the people that I got to engage with in ball hockey over those years. It's just a wealth of memories coming back as we've had this discussion. So thank you very much, and I wish you the best in your endeavor to put together that history of ball hockey that others can see and hopefully get a kernel, get a nugget, get some information to help them go forward with this sport. So thanks for doing what you're doing on this too.
Well, I thank you for your time. I appreciate all of your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.